The night was heavy with rain on Third Mainland Bridge. The city lights shimmered like broken stars on the wet road. A red supercar stood still in the middle of the storm, its engine coughing like a dying beast. Inside, Adaora Okupe, billionaire, proud, untouchable, sat trembling with anger. Her phone had no signal, her driver was far behind, and her patience had drowned in the rain. Then from the dark, a shadow appeared. A man in torn clothes, barefoot, holding a rusty toolbox. He didn't beg, didn't speak. He just knelt in the rain and opened her car bonnet. The thunder cracked, his hands worked fast, carefully and surely. Within minutes, the engine came alive again. Adaora reached for her purse, ready to reward him. But he stepped back, shook his head, and whispered, "No need, madam." Then, before she could blink, he disappeared into the storm. For the first time in her life, Adaora felt powerless. A man who owned nothing had refused her wealth. That simple act burned deeper than any insult. She couldn't sleep that night. She kept seeing his eyes, quiet, kind, and distant. By morning, curiosity had turned into fire, and Adaora decided she would find the man who dared to walk away. Adaora Okupe was born into gold and glass. The daughter of a Lagos tycoon, she grew up learning that power was a language spoken in money, silence, and control. By 32, she owned tech companies, high-rise estates, and a heart as guarded as her mansion gates. People bowed when she entered rooms, not from respect, but from fear of losing her favor. To Adaora, love was weakness. Kindness was a story poor people told themselves to feel better. On the other side of the city lived Chike, known by the streets as Brother Water. He had no title, no roof, and no shoes that matched. Yet his name traveled faster than money. He fetched water for the old, fixed broken stalls for free, and shared his last bread with strangers. He never stayed long anywhere. He helped, smiled, and vanished before anyone could say thank you. To him, life was simple. Do good, disappear, and never let pride find your door. Adaora was engaged to Tega, handsome, charming, and hungry for her empire. He loved her signature more than her laughter. Together, they looked perfect, but their hearts were strangers. When the highway night brought Chike into her path, it cracked the quiet surface of her world. After that night, Adaora couldn't rest. She saw Chike's face in every mirror and heard his voice in silence. Her work stumbled, her parents panicked. "Take a break," her mother begged. "Go to London, clear your head." But Adora's storm had just begun. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the memory hadn't. Adaora drove back to the same spot on the Third Mainland Bridge, hoping to see him again. The strange man with quiet eyes. The road shimmered with puddles, the air heavy with the smell of petrol. Her red car was spotless now, but the ground where it had broken down still carried dark stains of oil and water. She stepped out, scanning every corner like someone searching for a ghost. Only wind answered her. For the first time, she realized money could not summon everyone. She ordered her driver to wait and left an envelope on the bonnet of the car, filled with cash, her business card, and a short note. "You saved me last night. This is just to say thank you." She thought that would settle the matter, but the next morning, the same envelope was found tucked under her wiper. Untouched, dry, and sealed. Adaora froze. No one had dared reject her gift before. That night, she lay awake, replaying the moment in her mind, hearing his soft words. "No need, madam," like a curse she could not escape. Her anger came first. How dare he, she thought. Then came confusion. Then something she hated even more. Ache. A hollow ache that sat in her chest and refused to leave. It was strange to miss someone she didn't know. Strange to feel small in her own world of power. For the first time, her pride didn't feel like strength. It felt like a wall. Determined to find him, she ordered her security team to pull the CCTV footage from the highway cameras. Hours turned into days. They found every passing car, every street hawker, every wandering soul, except him. Chike moved like the wind. Every camera blinked, and he vanished between frames. "Madam," one of the men said quietly, "maybe the man no want to be found." Adaora dismissed him, but deep down, those words cut deeper than she cared to admit. A week later, she was driving through Obalende when a little boy knocked on her tinted window, selling plantain chips. His eyes lit up when he saw her face. "Auntie, now you weigh that man help for bridge?" Adaora leaned forward, startled. "Which man?" she asked. "Brother Waterna, the one way they fix people's motors for free," the boy said, smiling proudly. For the first time, Adaora had a name, Chike. That night, she stood before her mirror, her reflection pale and restless. "I must see him again," she whispered. "I must look in his eyes and say thank you." It was no longer about pride, it was about peace. Something inside her refused to rest until she did. Her secretary called the next morning to remind her of a major investors meeting. She canceled. Her company's stock was dipping, but her heart was too full to care. Her assistants whispered behind her back, confused at her new silence. Her father sent messages. She ignored them all. As thunder rolled over Lagos that night, Adaora stood by her window, eyes on the city lights. The question slipped out before she could stop it, soft, trembling, almost like prayer. "Why is thank you this heavy?" The sun was low and angry over Lagos when Adaora stepped out of her black SUV, her silk heels sinking into the soft mud of Makoko. The air was thick with smoke from burning firewood, mixed with the smell of fish and sweat. Children ran barefoot across planks laid over dark, stagnant water. Her perfume, strong and foreign, fought the scent of poverty, but lost. She had never been to this part of the city, this floating world of tin roofs and forgotten people. Her bodyguards followed closely, but she waved them off. "Stay here," she said. "I came to find someone, not to make noise." As she walked deeper, small hands reached for her gown. "Auntie, bless me," the children pleaded. One girl, barely 6, touched Adaora's wrist and whispered, "God go bless you." Adaora froze. No one had ever said those words to her without wanting something in return. She opened her purse and began to hand out naira notes, but more children gathered, and soon she was surrounded by laughter, dust, and tiny fingers. For a moment she felt something warm and strange, human. A woman selling groundnuts pointed toward a cluster of shacks by the water. "You dey find Brother Water?" she asked. Adaora nodded quickly. The woman smiled, revealing brown teeth. "He's been lying there, but he hasn't moved since morning." Adaora stepped into the small room, a single mat on the floor, still warm, a wooden cross on the wall, and a rusty bucket by the corner. She touched the mat gently, her heart heavy. "He was here," she whispered. As she turned to leave, a teenage boy called out, "Auntie, you dey find Am. Him dey help old people fetch water. He no dey stay one place. He just come do good and go." Adaora sighed. The more she searched, the more he seemed to disappear. Each story about him made him sound less like a man and more like a mystery. "Why hide after doing good?" she muttered. Then, through the haze of the afternoon heat, she saw him. Chike, barefoot, carrying a frail old man on his back, walking toward a wooden canoe. He placed the man gently inside, tied the boat's rope, and pushed it into the water. His movements were slow, humble, and deliberate. He looked nothing like the man she was used to. No pride, no rush, no noise, just quiet strength. "Chike," she called. He stopped. For a second, she thought he would turn, but he didn't. He only looked toward the water, then began to walk away. "Chike, wait!" she cried again, but her voice drowned under the sound of waves and chatter. He disappeared between narrow paths swallowed by the slum. Her heel broke as she ran after him. Pain shot through her ankle. She gasped, gripping a wooden pole for balance. In that moment, her pride bent like the heel beneath her. Beautiful, expensive, but fragile. She stood there barefoot, heart pounding, breathing the same air as those she once pitied. Rain began to fall, light and cold, washing her face. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the storm, "Why you dey run from me, Chike?" The only answer was the sound of water kissing mud and the echo of her own heart breaking. The following week, Adaora did something that shocked her entire company. She canceled a luxury brand shoot and redirected the entire budget to drill a borehole in Makoko. There were no journalists, no cameras, and no social media posts. The workers looked confused when she said, "No press." She stood quietly by the muddy field, watching water gush from the ground for the first time in that community. Children screamed with joy, splashing muddy water on her white trousers. Her security wanted to pull them away, but Adaora raised her hand. "Let them play," she said softly. For the first time, she felt proud of something that had no headline attached. Her next visit was to a small sickbay near the lagoon. The place smelled of herbs and salt water, with walls cracked and the roof leaking. Adaora spoke with the tired nurse who hadn't been paid in months. Without a word, she arranged for drugs, bandages, and mosquito nets, but she refused to let anyone hang her company's banner. "No logo," she insisted. This one is not business. The nurse didn't understand, but she smiled anyway. Something inside Adaora was shifting. Quietly, like dawn creeping into darkness. A week later, she noticed a rundown school by the corner of the slum. The children sat on bare ground, their slates cracked and their roof half gone. Adaora called a carpenter and replaced the roof. Then bought chalk, books, and slates for every child. The headmistress tried to announce her name, but Adaora stopped her gently. "Just tell them it's from someone who remembers them," she said. It felt strange, giving without applause, but it also felt clean. Then came the shock. She found a small note on her car windshield one morning, written on brown paper. "If you really want to help, don't put your name on it. Help should not make noise. Brother Water." Her hands trembled. She hadn't told anyone about her donations, yet somehow, Chike knew. She realized he had been watching, not from pride, but from principle. The next day, the nurse confirmed it. Chike had returned the bag of drugs that carried her company's logo. He said blessings don't need advertisement, the nurse told her. Adaora's chest ached with respect and confusion. One evening, as the sun painted the sky gold, Adaora spotted Chike again, this time by the shore, flying red paper kites with a group of orphans. The wind tangled their laughter with the sound of the waves. He looked happy, simple, alive, untouched by wealth or worry. She stood far away, afraid to interrupt. That image stayed in her heart all night. Day after day, she tried more acts of kindness, each like a stone dropped into water, good but silent. Yet every ripple disappeared before reaching him. He still avoided her. Her friends mocked her charity obsession, but she no longer cared. At night, she stood by her window, watching rain trace slow lines down the glass. Somewhere beyond the city lights, she imagined Chike's quiet smile, his gentle eyes, and his silence that spoke louder than any man's flattery. And as thunder rolled again, she whispered the question that would not leave her. "What kind of man fears thank you?" Tega sat across from Adaora in their marble dining room, his polished smile stretched too wide to be real. The clinking of cutlery filled the silence between them until he finally spoke, his voice cool but sharp. "Babe, who's that boy everyone says you're helping in Makoko?" Adaora looked up slowly, her spoon frozen midair. "He's just someone I met," she said calmly. "He fixed my car." Tega's jaw tightened. "Fixed your car? Or fixed your heart?" His tone was playful, but his eyes were not. Adaora didn't answer. She had stopped explaining herself to men who didn't understand peace. Later that night, Tega sat in his study, surrounded by papers and glowing screens. But he wasn't checking love messages. He was counting contracts. Every company Adaora owned was another reason to stay close. He scrolled through her balance sheets like a farmer counting ripe fruit. Love didn't drive him, survival did. And this new brother Water was a threat to his harvest. "How a beggar go block my marriage?" he muttered. His pride boiled, mixed with fear. Within days, jealousy began to rot his charm. He followed Adaora's car twice, hiding behind tinted glass. He sent men to watch the slums, to photograph this Chike, but they returned with nothing. The man was like wind. That only made Tega angrier. He started drinking more, pretending to smile during business meetings while his mind burned. Every time Adaora mentioned her charity work, he felt smaller. One moonless night, he drove down an old road outside Lagos, the kind people whispered about. The Shrine Road. He parked by a crooked palm tree and followed a man into the dark, where the air smelled of blood and smoke. The witch doctor's eyes glowed faintly under the firelight. "You seek to keep what is running from you," the old man said. "I can bind her heart, but remember, power always asks for payment." Tega nodded quickly, not caring to understand. The witch doctor handed him a pouch filled with gray powder. "Sprinkle this where she sleeps," he warned. "Say her name 3 times, her heart go stay with you." Tega smiled, his ambition blinding him to the danger. That night, he crept into Adaora's room while she slept and whispered her name once, twice, thrice, and blew the powder into the air. For a moment, he felt powerful. Then, everything went wrong. The next morning, Tega woke with pounding headaches and blurred vision. He saw shadows moving when the room was empty and heard whispers from silent walls. Adaora noticed his trembling hands and distant stare. "You okay?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Just tired." But deep down, fear had made a home in his chest. Days later, during a board meeting, his mask finally fell. A junior staff member made a small mistake and Tega exploded. He threw papers, cursed loudly, and shoved a chair. Someone recorded it. Within hours, the video spread. Investors called, alarmed. Adaora watched in silence as her empire's name trended beside his rage. That evening, she waited for him at home. He walked in, sweaty and shaking. She stood tall, calm as ice. "Tega," she said quietly, "leave my house, but keep your shame." He tried to speak, but her eyes silenced him. As he left, he looked back once and realized too late that he had lost not a woman, but a kingdom. The morning sun burned softly over Makoko, turning the muddy waters gold. Adaora's convoy stopped at the narrow bridge that led into the slum. Her guards looked uneasy. This was no place for their madam in a white dress and pearl earrings. But Adaora had already stepped out, barefoot, her heels left behind in the car. Whispers followed her as she walked through the narrow alleys, some in awe, some in confusion. She didn't care. For the first time in her life, she came not to give, not to command, but to surrender. When she saw Chike by the well, helping a woman draw water, her knees gave way before her pride could stop her. In the middle of the crowded street, a billionaire knelt in the mud. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "let me say thank you." Chike froze, shocked. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen a woman like her kneel in the dirt, not even in prayer. He dropped the bucket he was holding and stepped closer, his eyes soft but unreadable. "Madam, this no be your place to kneel," he said quietly. But Adaora didn't rise. "Then make it my place," she replied. Her tears mixed with the mud beneath her hands. Chike sighed deeply, then reached down and lifted her gently to her feet. His touch was warm, steady. The crowd was silent, watching a story unfold that no one would ever forget. Adaora pressed an envelope into his hand again. "Please," she said, "this time don't refuse." But he looked down at it, then shook his head. "You don't pay for doing what your spirit asks you to do," he said. "I just fixed a car. You owe me nothing." His humility struck her harder than rejection. As he turned, her eyes caught something on his wrist, a long, pale scar shaped like a half circle with lines across it. Her breath caught. It looked almost identical to her family crest, the same one engraved on her company's seal and her father's old ring. "Where did you get that?" she asked quickly. Chike looked at his wrist, then at her. "Fire," he said simply. "A long time ago." As he turned, her eyes caught something on his wrist, a long, pale scar shaped like a half circle with lines across it. Her breath caught. It looked almost identical to her family crest, the same one engraved on her company's seal and her father's old ring. "Where did you get that?" she asked quickly. Chike looked at his wrist, then at her. "Fire," he said simply. "A long time ago." People began to whisper. "Now which can love be this?" one man murmured. "A rich woman kneel for poor man," another said. "Maybe him be angel," someone added. Phones came out. Cameras flashed. Adaora's security guards pushed through the crowd, panicking. "Madam, please stand up," one begged. But she didn't hear them. Her world had gone quiet. Only her heartbeat and Chike's silence remained. Her tears tasted of rust, of rainwater and truth. For the first time since she was a child, she wasn't crying for pain or pride. She was crying because something pure had touched her, something money could never buy and power could never command. When Adora's parents saw how restless she had become, they could no longer pretend everything was fine. Her mother clasped her hand and said softly, "My daughter, you need air. Fly out, breathe small." Her father nodded from his armchair, his voice low and firm. "Go to London, forget that place for a while. All this Makoko talk and kneeling in mud, it's not you." Adaora forced a smile, but inside, her heart was already far away from private jets and polished marble floors. Still, she agreed, if only to silence their worries. The plane was half empty, but first class felt like a coffin. The smell of leather and wine turned her stomach. Every luxury that once made her proud now mocked her. She stared through the window as the city lights faded beneath the clouds, remembering the faces of children laughing under leaking roofs. Her reflection on the glass looked strange, lonely, lost, and small. She whispered to herself, "This air too clean, I can't breathe peace in it." By the time she landed in London, her chest felt heavier than when she left. She walked through the glass corridors of Heathrow like a ghost, surrounded by people rushing nowhere. The hotel was grand, but her room was cold. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even pray. At dawn, she made her decision. Without informing anyone, she booked a return flight. The driver who picked her up at Murtala Muhammad Airport was stunned. "Madam, you no even stay 2 days?" he asked. "I no fit," she said quietly, "my heart no day here." Back home, her world had started to crumble. Reports flooded in, projects delayed, deals collapsing, investors growing nervous. Her managers whispered in corners. Her staff tiptoed around her, unsure what mood they'd find her in. It was as if her absence had drained life from everything she built. For the first time, she realized her empire had been powered not by purpose, but by pressure. One afternoon, her mother burst into her study, worry etched deep on her face. "Adaora, talk to me," she pleaded. "Is it Jazz? Did someone do something to you?" Adaora gave a small, tired laugh. "Maybe God just wants me to feel what I've been blind to," she said. Her mother blinked in confusion, clutching her chest. Her father, who had been silent all week, cleared his throat. His cough came deep, heavy, almost forced. He looked at her, but said nothing. There was something behind his eyes, a secret he had carried too long. When she tried to ask, he only coughed again and said, "You'll understand soon." That evening, Adaora picked up the engagement ring Tega had given her. It glittered coldly under the light, like an empty promise. She placed it in a small box and called her driver. "Deliver it to him," she said. No message, no explanation. Silence would speak louder. As her car pulled into her compound, thunder cracked above Lagos. Rain began to pour, soft and wild. Adaora stepped out, letting it soak her dress. The sky roared as if to welcome her back. In the distance, lightning flashed across the city, bright, fierce, and free. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Home." The night was thick with fear when Adaora's driver dropped her at a narrow footpath outside Lagos. The road was quiet, lined with dead trees and shrines half buried in sand. Crickets cried in the dark. She wore a black shawl to hide her face. It felt wrong, but her heart had grown desperate. The same road her ex-fiancé once took, she now walked. Forbidden help. That was what her spirit called it. But still, she went. Every part of her wanted peace from this fire that refused to die. The woman she met was old and bent, her neck heavy with cowries and beads. Her eyes were yellow like candlelight, her smile slow and knowing. "Rich woman, why your heart they cry like poor man own?" she asked. Adaora hesitated, clutching her purse tight. "I just want him to see me," she whispered, "to love me back. I've done everything good, but he still walks away." The old woman nodded and brought out a small gourd sealed with red wax. "This one will turn his heart toward you. But remember, what no belong to you go fight you when it comes." Adaora left the shrine with trembling hands, her heart pounding. That night, as the rain fell outside her window, she sat alone with the gourd on her table. She wanted to open it, to whisper Chike's name into it as instructed. But before she could, sleep claimed her, and with it came a nightmare. She saw red water flooding her house, a broken calabash floating in it, and a child crying at the edge of the flood, whispering, "Don't force love, let it find you." She woke up screaming, sweat drenching her silk nightgown. The gourd had cracked on its own, spilling ash across the floor. Her hands shook as she gathered the pieces. "God forgive me," she whispered. She carried them outside and poured kerosene over them. The fire burned fast, bright, and painful. The smoke stung her eyes and she coughed as the wind carried the smell of burnt charms into the night. The flames hissed as if the spirits themselves were sighing in relief. When the fire died, she sat by her desk and began to write. A letter she titled My Confession. In it, she poured every secret, her search for Chike, her envy, her pride, her visit to the shrine. She didn't know who would read it, only that truth was heavy until spoken. Her tears left small, wet marks on the paper. As dawn crept in, Adaora walked to the river near her estate. The sky was still gray, the air cold. She knelt by the water, dipped her hands in and whispered, "If love is clean, I will not drag it." The water was cold but calm. She washed her hands 3 times until they felt lighter. Before she left, she looked over the water, the ripples catching the morning light. "I'm sorry," she whispered softly, to God, to Chike, to herself. The wind carried her voice across the river, where it vanished into the hush of the waking day. At dawn, when the city still yawned in silence, Chike was already awake. He walked barefoot along the wooden planks of a forgotten street by the water's edge. The small clinic where he worked had no signboard, no name, and no doctor. only him. He cleaned wounds, dressed cuts, and prayed under his breath for those too poor to afford hospitals. His hands moved gently, yet with the confidence of someone who had seen pain before. Children called him Brother Water, not just because he fetched it, but because he healed like it. Quietly, slowly, without noise. In a small cupboard behind the clinic door was a brown ledger. Inside it were names written in pencil. No full names, only initials. There were also notes in neat handwriting. M.O. needs new shoes for school. A.E. pregnant, no family. D.J. lost leg in accident, prayers for peace. The donations listed came from nowhere, at least on paper. No one ever took credit, and Chike liked it that way. Help the work, not my name, he always told those who offered money. For him, charity lost its soul when tied to pride. One afternoon, while cleaning the clinic shelves, Chike found an old photograph pinned behind a broken clock. The picture was burned at the edges, showing a young woman smiling beside a man in uniform, standing near a red fire truck. He looked closer. The man's face resembled Adaora's father. His heart skipped. He flipped the photo over and saw faint handwriting. Adaora Okupe, Makoko Rescue, 1996. That was the year of the Great Market Fire. The same fire that scarred his wrist and took his mother. He sat down slowly, the air leaving his chest. Memories flooded back. The screams, the smoke, the child he had carried out of the flames, and the hot metal that branded his skin. He had seen that same crest later, shining on cars and billboards, belonging to the family that rebuilt their empire while his mother was buried in silence. So that's why life brought her to me, he whispered bitterly. The fire never really ended. That night, Chike sat by the water, staring at his reflection in the dark waves. I will not touch the rich life that hurt us, he murmured. I'll help, but I'll never step into their world. His vow was not anger, it was armor. For him, kindness was sacred, and wealth was a test too easy to fail. The next morning, he packed his few belongings into a small nylon bag, the same one he'd used for years, and told no one where he was going. By sunrise, the clinic door was locked. People came looking for him, but all they found was the empty mat he once slept on, and the smell of disinfectant fading into air. When Adaora returned to Makoko days later, her heart sank. Everywhere she went, the same answer met her. He dawn travel go another waterside. She didn't cry. Instead, she followed the path he had left behind, not through maps, but through people. Every healed person, every smiling child, every whisper of kindness pointed her forward. And so she walked, barefoot this time, following the quiet footprints of a man whose mercy spoke louder than miracles. The news hit Adaora like lightning. Tega was back in the city, and this time, he came with fire. In a desperate move to destroy both her name and Chike's peace, he paid men to steal medical supplies from the small clinic Chike once managed, leaving behind fake receipts with Chike's name on them. The story spread fast. The beggar turned thief. The blogs screamed. Crowds gathered in the slum, dragging Chike from his small room when he returned briefly to visit. You think we no you they sell the drugs? A man shouted. Chike didn't fight back. His eyes stayed calm, his lips barely moving as he whispered, truth no day fear delay. By the time Adaora arrived, the air was thick with anger. The people surrounded Chike, shouting, ready to drag him to the police. Adaora forced her way through the crowd, her white shirt stained with sweat and dust. Stop, she screamed, standing between Chike and the mob. Her guards tried to hold her back, but she waved them off. If he stole, I want to hear it from his mouth, she said. Chike looked at her quietly, the same way he did the night on the bridge. I know steal, he said softly. But sometimes lies grow faster than truth. The crowd murmured, restless but uncertain. Just then, an old man stepped forward, Mr. Adebayo, her father's retired lawyer. His face was pale, his voice shaking. Miss Okupe, he said, I have something your father wanted buried. He held out a brown folder, edges burnt, papers half destroyed. Adaora took it slowly, her heart pounding. Inside were old hospital documents, police reports, and a faded photograph. Her father, younger, holding a woman with soot on her face. The caption read, Makoko Market Fire, 1996. Her father arrived moments later, out of breath, guilt written across his face. I didn't want this to come out, he said, trembling. I made a mistake when I was young. I loved a woman before your mother. During that market fire, I lost her and the baby. I thought both were gone. He looked at Chike with sorrow. When I saw you, I thought maybe. His voice broke. Chike stepped forward slowly, shaking his head. I'm not your blood, sir. He lifted his sleeve, showing the scar. This mark did not come from birth. It comes from fire. That day I pull your woman out. She no make am. But the baby? He stopped, eyes glistening. The baby died in my arms. The hot metal from your company's truck burned me here. I carry that mark to remember. The air grew still. From the back of the crowd, a familiar voice echoed, Tega's. No lie, he shouted, sweating. All of Unade blind, the man a thief. But before he could speak further, another man stepped out, the same witch doctor Tega had visited. This one, the old man said, pointing at Tega, use my charm for evil. He bind her heart, but spirit returned the curse. The crowd gasped. Tega's hands began to shake. He fell to his knees, sobbing. Forgive me, I only wanted her back. Adaora's chest tightened. She reached into her bag and pulled out her own letter. The confession she had written the night she burned her charm. Her voice cracked as she read aloud. I also went to the shrine. The crowd went silent. Only the wind spoke, carrying the weight of their shame. But I destroyed it, she continued, tears falling. And tonight, I destroy my silence too. No more secrets, no more lies. For the first time, both lies and truth stood side by side, naked, trembling, but finally free. The crowd had begun to scatter, whispers fading into the night. When Adaora turned to Chike with trembling hands, her voice was weak, but her eyes were strong. Tell me, Chike, why did you run from me? For a long time, he said nothing. He only looked at her, the billionaire who had knelt in the mud, the woman who once hid her heart behind glass walls. Then, softly, he spoke. I ran because power stains kindness, he said. I would not let your name swallow the work. When the rich touch mercy, sometimes it turns into pride. I wanted to keep it clean. His words fell like gentle rain, washing her spirit in truth. Adaora's knees gave way again. Without thinking, she fell before him a second time. This time not out of guilt, but from grace. The crowd gasped. Chike quickly reached for her, his hands trembling as he lifted her once more. No kneeling again, he whispered, his voice breaking. You've already knelt enough for the both of us. She smiled through her tears, her face wet with rain and redemption. From his pocket, Chike pulled a small red thread, simple, soft, almost weightless. Gold blinds, he said quietly, but thread binds. He tied it gently around her finger, his touch tender, deliberate. If we ever marry, let mercy be our ring. Not gold, not title, not power, just mercy. Adaora's tears fell onto his hands, and for the first time she didn't hide them. The crowd watched in silence, no music, no applause, just hearts learning what love could mean. Behind them, the police arrived, their flashlights slicing through the humid air. Tega, still kneeling in the mud, raised his hands without a word. The officers cuffed him and began to lead him away. No one clapped, no one shouted. The street stayed quiet, mourning what jealousy had turned him into. As he was led past Adaora, he whispered, I'm sorry. She nodded slowly. So am I. And that was the end of him. Her mother, who had watched everything from afar, ran forward, sobbing into Adaora's arms. My daughter, you're free, she cried. Her father followed behind, shoulders heavy, eyes red with regret. He placed a trembling hand on Chike's shoulder. Forgive me, he said, for the fire, for the lies, for the silence. Chike nodded once. Forgiveness is lighter than revenge, he said softly. Let's carry light, not ashes. Weeks later, Adaora rebuilt her company from the ashes of her pride. Contracts were rewritten, projects redirected. She no longer chased profit, she chased purpose. The same boreholes, schools, and clinics that once carried her name now carried none. Slowly, her fortune returned, not loud, not dirty, but clean. Their wedding came months later, under the open sky of Lagos. No diamonds, no orchestra, just drums, rain, and joy. Adaora wore white cotton, Chike wore his simple shirt. When he lifted her hand, the red thread still glowed faintly in the light. It had never broken. As the crowd danced, an old woman walked by, leaving a single red kite at their doorstep. On its tail was a note that read, Fly low, the sky is wide. Adaora smiled, her heart calm. She finally understood, the higher you rise in pride, the easier you fall. But those who fly low in mercy never crash. In the end, Adaora's story teaches that true transformation doesn't happen in boardrooms or through miracles of wealth. It happens in silence, in surrender, and in mercy. Pride shouts, mercy whispers. And it is often the street, not the spotlight, that knows the truth before the news. Love that is forced through power or charms will always break by morning, but love that kneels with humility can stand forever. We all carry our own kind of wealth, some in money, others in compassion. The richest hearts are those that give quietly, expecting nothing back. The poorest souls are those who help only when someone is watching. Life will always test your pride. It will ask, can you kneel to lift another? Nice. True wealth is mercy shared in secret. A heart you force will never stay, only the willing one remains. Secrets burn families, but truth cools the fire. Kindness does not like cameras. Let your work speak louder than your name. Kneeling to lift another is not weakness, it is power with clean hands. In every act of grace, remember, humility builds what pride destroys.